Hello, lovely people. Welcome back. If you are here from my very first video, thank you for joining me once again. And I just want to apologize for the audio on the last video. It was horrendous. At least now I think my laptop is behaving a little bit. So the audio hopefully is not too bad this time around. So in my last video, in my intro, I didn't really explain much about myself. Of course, I did explain that I wanted to be anonymous and not show my face or say my name. And I'm hoping you'll understand. But I suppose I can tell you where I'm from. I am from South Africa. I was born and bred here. And yeah, I'll talk about what I studied and I'll go into a little bit more details maybe in future videos. But for purposes of this video, I am going to talk about my teaching experience. So I was a teacher for about 7 years, and guys, it burnt me out. I was finished. My health, both my physical and mental health, suffered greatly from being in this profession. And I know a lot of people complain about the teaching profession around the world. It's not ideal in most places around the world, but let me tell you, in South Africa, it is an absolute nightmare. If you work for a government school in South Africa, there are just so many there's just so many things that when young people want to go into teaching, I encourage them, or rather I discourage them, because I know what I went through. It was hell. It was hell, especially for someone like me. And I'll explain a little bit more about that. So in 2015, I got my first teaching job. And I was at the school. It was a mainstream school. It was a public school. It was considered a semi-rural school, which means it had government assistance, but it was in what used to be a very poor rural area, and still is to a larger extent. So a lot of the students, most of the students were, living in poverty, and I saw a lot, and I experienced a lot. So yeah, but that wasn't even the problem with that school. I The problem was, yeah, I did have issues with discipline. I'm not saying that it was all rosy. It wasn't. So discipline was a huge issue for me, especially for me, because I am what they call a nice person. I am like everyone thinks I'm well, not thinks, but I mean, I guess I am a nice person, nice to a fault. So a lot of people sort of take advantage and of my good nature and stuff, and that doesn't bode well when you're a teacher, because kids, don't ever underestimate kids. They will walk all over you if they sense that you are kind and nice. I'm sorry to say this. I know there'll be a lot of teachers who don't like what I'm saying, but this is my experience. Please don't invalidate my experience. I'm just telling you my truth here. If you are too nice as a teacher, there will be students who will take advantage of this. And so anyway, I started teaching there in 2015. I was there for 5 years at this particular school. And then later on, for the last 2 years, I was teaching online. So 7 years altogether, but 5 in a mainstream school and 2 years online. But that's also not counting my teaching practice as well. I taught, well, I didn't really teach. I was doing my teaching practice, which is very different. You only teach for like a few months of the year, so not really teaching. You don't get the full onslaught of what teaching is in your teaching practice. So yeah, so more or less 7 to 8 years of teaching experience I had. And so at my first job at this public school, we had in South Africa, if you teach in a public school, you'll know we have very, very large numbers. When I see when I see American teachers and British teachers complaining, or even in South Africa, the ones who teach in private schools, when they complain about class numbers and they complain that there are 25 in their class or 27 in their class, it makes me so freaking mad. I get so angry because you know, the average number in a public school in South Africa, the average, this is what is considered the norm, is 35 to 40 in a class. If you get 30, if you, I remember there was one year I had one class of 32, and I was pretty lucky. That was my like lucky year. So we had like incredibly large numbers. Now, the problem with the school is that every year that I was at the school, the numbers kept increasing and increasing. And no jokes, guys, in the last year that I taught, there was one class I had that was, I think, 66. I know a lot of people won't believe me, but those are the numbers. Those are the numbers that we had. And a lot of it was due to since I'm anonymous, I can say this, I guess. There's no retribution from anybody, but nobody knows who I am, so I can say this. But the reason that our numbers kept increasing and increasing was because of corruption from the SGB. Now, the SGB is our student governing body. It's a bit like the USA. I think the USA has PTA, parent teacher something, I don't know, but it's something very similar. So we call it the SGB. So it's sort of like an organization made up of the students of the school, parents, um, members of staff. So yeah, and the head of and in the SGB, I'm not sure of the exact rules, but when you elect a chairperson of the SGB, you have to have a chairperson every single year or every couple of years. But the chairperson of our SGB was in the position for like, I don't know, I think 8 or 9 years in a row. I don't know, something very, but very, very, very long time. And which is, I think it's illegal. I'm not sure if that he can even do that, but yeah, he held that position because he was a small time dictator in a way. He I think this is a story for another video. I'm not going to get into it here, but just know the guy was a complete asshole, and he was so corrupt, and I'll explain why he kept increasing the numbers in the classroom. It was disgusting, and I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle it, but there were other issues, there were other reasons why I left the school as well. I was the victim of workplace bullying by a fellow teacher. And I think with the large numbers, with being bullied, with poor management and the bureaucrats involved, and also I was traveling long distance as well. So all of these things just compounded and I couldn't handle it anymore. And I just said, screw this, I'm leaving. So I left. And strangely enough, I gave in my resignation like a couple of months before COVID actually broke out, before COVID was even a thing. So I left sort of at the right time, kind of. And I got into online teaching. I was teaching at iTutor, which is this Taiwanese company, sorry. It's this Taiwanese company. And I didn't have much success there because as soon as I started, COVID broke out and the number of students enrolling decreased, so I wasn't getting any lessons. and eventually I just gave it up. So for 6 months of 2020, I was literally unemployed, wasn't earning anything. And yeah, and then I joined another school. Now this school was a mainstream school, a very popular one where I live. It has a very good reputation. They've been running for 30 years and a very, very good reputation in our community. So when COVID started, they decided to create an online platform for their students, to create like an online school. Unfortunately, they did not know what they were doing. These people were for a school who has been running for so long, and you'd think they would have, they would have their wits about them. But you know what, in their defense, COVID was, there was no precedent for COVID. We didn't know. I think most of us didn't know what we were doing. So, okay, fine. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They had some teething problems. So so the whole of 2020, they started in 2020. In 2021, they had been advertising for new teachers, and I decided to apply, and I got the job. I got it, and I was so excited. But they took me they took me for granted, and I think the best way to describe it is that they exploited me. And I find this a lot in my life. I feel like th- this is not to brag, but I am a bit of, I am very hardworking. I am known for my work ethic. That's a fact. My husband actually told me that I actually take my work too seriously. And perhaps I do. I don't know if that makes me a perfectionist. I'm not sure if it does. I don't need things to be perfect, but I do take my job very seriously, and I do want to do the best job that I can do. Well, I guess maybe I am a bit of a perfectionist. I'm not sure. And I think maybe this sort of attitude has also, over the past few years, I think my anxiety levels have increased to such a high level, and I don't know if it's because of that. But anyway, yeah, I just noticed something about me. Wherever I work, even before I started teaching, I had other jobs as well. I always feel like I get a very heavy workload. In a lot of cases, my workload is heavier than the other people who are in the same um, job, or place or company or whatever. And I don't know why that is. I just don't know. Is it because I don't know. I don't know. I just always attract a heavy workload. And it's for that reason why I'm just so done with a normal 8 to 5 or 8 to 4 job or whatever. I'm done with it. And because of that, this year I decided to start my own business. So there's a bit of personal information there. I've had some few problems this year starting it up. That's another story. But anyway, um, yeah. So I can't. I just felt, and the thing is, I love teaching. This is the saddest thing, right? I do love teaching. I do love interacting with kids, but sometimes it gets a bit much. I feel overwhelmed, and I feel like I need to take a break. I am not. I wouldn't consider myself introverted. I think I'm more of an ambivert. I'm a bit of both. I can be extroverted in situations where I feel comfortable. So I'm not a complete introvert, but I feel like teaching, the the profession itself has made me more introverted. I feel like I just need to take a break, even if the students are great, even if I have a small class, and I I feel so overwhelmed and drained. The 5 years teaching in that public school drained me. I think I've had a few mental breakdowns in between, I'm sure. I just pushed and pushed. I my physically I suffered. I put on a lot of weight. And yeah, I'm going to talk about my obesity issues, in another video. But yeah, I put on a lot. I was actually very thin. I was about, I think, just over maybe about 55 to 60 kgs, which I don't think is heavy. I think it's quite, you're quite thin. But yeah, now I'm over 80 kgs. So like, I put on a lot of weight in the space of, including COVID, like in the past 7 years. I just put on so much of weight, and it's so distressing. And yeah, it's yeah, that's what teaching did to me. And it in the end it wasn't worth it. Even though I love the act of teaching, I just couldn't handle the schedules. I couldn't handle the the emotional drainage. It was too much for me. Took its toll on my health. And yeah, so this is where I am right now. So I decided to start a new business. I will give updates on how that business is going. So far, it's not going too well. It's I you always expect to skyrocket and start off with a bang, because you're all excited and stuff. And I'm still excited. I still feel like this is the right thing for me to do. I feel like I cannot work with people anymore. I feel like I need to work for myself. So tell me if you feel the same way. Do you feel like a normal 8 to 5, 8 to 4, 9 to 5? I don't know, depending, different countries have different work schedules and times. But do you feel like work is just not for you? You feel like you should be doing something else with your life rather than working a normal job? And yeah, just tell me what your thoughts are. And if you've ever suffered from burnout at work or even bullying, I'm going to cover bullying in another video, but tell me what your thoughts about the workplace are and your experiences. Until next time, thank you for listening. Peace and love to everybody listening to this.